me! Don't you ever! I am Solo! I am the IT Shadow! Do you hear me? I am Solo!
Welcome back to Q-Dads, it's me, Ste, and yes, episode 5 of Solo is a lot more meatier than the previous weeks, which is great to see this story progressing. Just like the water rising in Solo 17, so does the level of content we get. More secrets are being revealed about Solo and the lies he carries with him, as well as Bernard and Lukas working closely together to reveal the secrets of the Solo itself. So we're going to be discussing all of that in this week's episode, but don't forget to hit that subscribe button as it really does help the channel to grow, and we appreciate having those conversations each week about such an interesting show. And of course, we have not read the books, so there'll be no book spoilers here, and we would really appreciate it if you guys in the comments can also follow the same suit. So the episode ends with Juliette finding the missing helmet that was taken from the suit department, and this was actually one of the suit room workers' apartments, but of course not the apartment of the original Solo. That's right, the other big thing that was revealed towards the end of this episode was that Solo, who claimed he was the IT Shadow, Cole Myers, was in fact not Cole Myers, and his identity of Solo and the backstory that he gave himself was in fact a lie. But our questions are around when he started lying and why he started lying. So for this, Ben dropped a video earlier in the week explaining why he believes that Solo isn't from Solo 17 and he has actually come in from the outside as an imposter, learned some of the key information and is now taking the identity of the IT Shadow whilst using Solo 17 as a safe haven. Now, yes, as mentioned there, Ben did make a video in the week and I bet he's so happy that Solo isn't who he's supposed to be. So here's what I think. Maybe Solo was the original IT Shadow as he proclaimed to be, and I believe he is Russell's kid as he mentions in the story. But I'm wondering if he went crazy once he found out about the real world, then was cast aside for Cole Myers. And once the rebellion started, I wonder if Solo killed Cole, or Cole was killed, and Russell had no other option but to turn to his own son once again. Alternatively, he could have also been a friend of Cole's. I do still think he's Russell's kid, hence how he knew the story of the Solo nickname, and Cole told him all the information about IT, or his dad did, as the rebellion started. And linking that back to what I just said, maybe Cole gets killed and entrusts IT to Solo, the son of Russell. Going one step further, when Juliette mentioned that Solo wasn't the right age to remember Lapis, what if Lapis was actually his real sister? Hence why he would recognise the bag and her belongings. Either way, this leaves us with questions. How long is Solo going to continue this lie? And of course, what is the actual importance of keeping this up? The fact that Juliette didn't know Solo at all. He could have said his name was anybody. He could have revealed the truth and said he wasn't the Shadow of IT, but stumbled on the vault's safety. If that's the case, or maybe the truth is too far-fetched for even Juliette to believe. Of course, a couple of predictions for next week's episode is that Juliette is going to wake up inside the vault. That's right, I think that Solo is going to find her, be worried and concerned because he does seem to have that natural caring ability, so we'll take her to the vault to get some medical help, because I imagine that's where he stored all the information. Of course, when she wakes up, she will then learn the truth about the Solo. She'll learn what's inside the vault to an extent, and it will help progress the story even more. I think this is all going to be part of a trade though. As Juliette mentioned, she could possibly pump the water out at floor 30. As Solo mentioned, in 10 months, IT will be gone, and in 13 months, the whole place will be flooded. Now, this brings us on to our next point, which is Lukas and Bernard. Now, Bernard brought Lukas from the mines to work on this crushed and broken hard drive that he smashed in last season, as it contains vital information. Now, before we carry on, Ben was so adamant no one ever returns from the mines, so technically he's wrong, and I just thought I'd mention that. We see Lukas piece together some of this information, and the first bit obviously he wants to talk about is how he showed and highlighted the map that the Solo, or what they know to be the map of the Solo, and the map of either a different Solo or the real map of Solo 18. Now, this map highlights two different things. One, the tunnels at the bottom of this silo, which we've pretty much known existed since the start of last season, and we firmly believe there is a network between other different silos. But of course, are the tunnels actually flooded? As we saw in the last season, there was water at the bottom of the silo. Or would they only be flooded somewhere like Silo 17, for example? So if they open the doors, the water from Silo 17 would escape. For the next interesting little bit is the two lines that are coming from the IT room and Judicial. So we obviously know that IT runs the silo, and we've also predicted that inside the vault there are doorways and pathways to other areas within the silo. Now, I don't necessarily think these lines are networks to other silos, but more of a communication line or a power source, as Solo alluded to. Now, if this is the case, that surely means that both Juliette and Solo can follow these power lines to some degree, as the ultimate power source seems to be outside of the silo. Now, obviously that was a massive reveal that something outside of the silo is generating power for these IT rooms. Could there be a master silo somewhere? So obviously we know there are 50. Could there be one more that ultimately controls the power to all the rest and is able to monitor and decide what each of their silos go through? Because obviously rebellions seem to start at the flick of a switch. Could there be another silo that controls them all and ultimately kicks off experiments? Now, as we're talking about this, those wires or communication pipes or whatever they were towards the middle of the silo. So if Juliet and Solo were to actually follow them, they wouldn't lead to any point above ground, but maybe possibly there could be a small haven underground for those who almost oversee the experiments, like I mentioned just, and things that go on within the silo. Because a great detail that is also mentioned by Solo is that Romeo and Juliet, the version of the story, is different within both silos, meaning that there is some kind of experiment with variable changes happening within each of the 50 silos. And of course, the second bit of information was around Salvador Quinn, who was the head of IT around 140 to 150 years ago, and it was revealed that this letter, which was classed as a love letter, but almost changed to code afterwards. What does this lead to? So, are we going to see in the next episode that Bernard and Lukas are trying to crack the code to this? Whether that will be left down to some of the fans like us to decipher the code, which of course we'll be giving it a shot here, but what information could be on there that's so important or relevant after 150 years? Is it the truth about the silo or network of silos? Is it the truth about the condition on the outside, or is it something else? And just while we're talking about Bernard, his reaction to the schematics didn't seem that concerning, like he knew about them. Well, apart from the tunnel at the bottom of the silo. And if we cast our mind back to season 1, Juliette mentions this tunnel to him, and he seems to think she's lying. So again, we think this is some kind of silo link. Maybe even the head of IT doesn't know about it, as the link to other silos is some kind of final experiment, one that will open once the outside is safe again. Of course, we also need to talk about the fact that Sims was made judge in this episode, and something that I didn't actually expect. But again, we must ask ourselves the question, what does this mean? I personally think this is a great power move by Bernard. Being made judge is clearly an upgrade, but it's also like being siloed, pardon the pun, into his own little world, as clearly Judge Meadows spent most of her time drunk, proving the title of judge is merely a figurehead and nothing else. Ben also wanted to add this, that could Bernard be putting Sims in charge as almost like a fall guy? So when things go wrong, people always blame the judge, the person who's in charge, not the head of IT. Yet, I believe Sims and his knowledge of the pact will find some loophole to be able to remove Bernard from power, or reveal some kind of truth to the silo. We still haven't seen that clip from the original trailer, where those letters fall down from the sky to say Juliet lives. Now, could that be something that Sims enforces, or has a hand in? Now, some last little bits I want to talk about. Camille, Sims' wife, what is her endgame here? As I believe this is the second time she's helped a fugitive, the first being Juliette in season 1. She would have worked closely with Judge Meadows, so does Camille know more about the silo than she's letting on, hence knowing where the cameras are broken and stuff. Either way, her and Sims are playing a strange game, and I'm starting to wonder which side Camille sits on. Maybe she has ties back to the previous rebellion through her family. And one final thing I want to mention. Back in Silo 17, we see the name of the real Silo's girlfriend, that being Treena Samuel, or nicknamed Tiny. Why are we shown this name and the fact she had a nickname? Unless more information around her is going to show up in the next couple of episodes. Maybe it's me just being hopeful, but it feels like they lingered on the name for too long for it not to pop up again. Maybe as a way of Juliette figuring out who Solo really is. Right, I'm going to throw a few questions over to you guys about some of the other details we saw in the show. Do you think Nox and Shirley are going to survive, especially after rappelling down a series of levels, which was fantastic to say? What do you think the move is for Billings, as he almost defies Bernard and goes against the pack and tries to uncover the real version of the truth? And of course, what do you think will happen now that Solo's secret has been revealed? Will he ultimately be the one to save Juliette, or will he continue to only care about the vault? So of course, as always, let us know in the comments, because like I said at the start, we do love having those conversations with you and brainstorming different theories. And remember, no book spoilers. Please, we've not read the books, and a lot of our audience have also not read the books either. So we want to keep the comments as spoiler free as possible, and we really appreciate your support with that. Hit the like button, turn on the notification bell, and don't forget to subscribe. And as always, we'll catch you next time with something new.